This video is about revising your essays, and it covers a lot of what is stated in the essay writing textbook, just in different terms. So revising literally means to re-see things. It's a revision, okay, to re-see. Now, depending on, what your situation is, sometimes I get the sense that some people just write things the night before and hand them in without ever looking at them again. And I guess you can do that. I sometimes did that when I was a student. I get it. But if you really want to have a good essay, you have to reread it and reread it and reread it, okay? That the more time you can spend thinking about the subject, the better off you will be. And there are strategies to do this, okay? It's great if you have a lot of time to write something early and put it aside and come back to it in a couple of weeks. Depending on your time management skills, that may or may not be possible. But the more time you can spend over a longer period of time on your paper, generally speaking, the better off it will be. So I won't focus on time management here. I'll leave that up to you. But in terms of thinking about it, your essays, there's three ways to revise writing that you have done. The three areas that you can focus on are the conceptual, the organizational, and the stylistic. And I'll just deal with these three things in order quickly. So the conceptual, this is what I like to call the heavy lifting, the really kind of philosophical, content-based analysis, okay? That is the best thinking that you can do on the topic, okay? Have you thought this through? Have you thought about all the different perspectives that we might have? Now, you don't have to include everything you've ever thought about, okay? But what you include, is it the best stuff that you want to include for the purposes of your argument? Second, the organizational level. How are the paragraphs structured and how are they sequenced? Now, there's no simple formula, all paragraphs must be 7 sentences long or something like that. But, if you're writing a 4-page paper and you have one paragraph that's 2 pages long, that's probably too long, okay? So, try to avoid the boring standard 5-paragraph essay if it's not needed, okay? But are the paragraphs, well proportioned? And do they follow a sequence that makes sense? Usually people say, start with your least interesting or least forceful arguments first and lead up to your strongest arguments last, because people will remember that you want to guide your reader through the subject in a way that makes sense. So is there a logical sequence to your argument? And lastly, the third point is the stylistic. Is your writing clear and clean? Does it make sense? And is it error-free? Because spelling errors, grammar errors are distracting and annoying. And depending on your reader, they may make you look less intelligent than you actually are. So good writing is usually clean and error-free. So as you're working through your paper, there's different stages that you will encounter. And so after you've written down what you think you want to say, you have a first draft. You've probably all heard this before. And you can revise your draft. This is the point of this video. How do you work with what you've already written down? Some people really struggle with this, that their good copy is exactly the same as their rough draft. And that's a situation where there's no revision at all. That you want to think about, making changes. That as you work through an idea, has your thinking changed? So as you're working with drafts, computers are awesome these days. You can turn on your track changes if you work in Microsoft Word, or I don't know much about other word processing programs, but there's these great track changes things that you can actually, remember the changes that you've made, and it highlights it in the document and on the side. So you can change your mind all the time. You can always go back, okay? You can work old school with pen and paper if you want, mark things up, print it out, revise it with your pen, okay? So that's just a kind of normal process of working with the content, working with the ideas, okay? Then as you're working through this, you can revise your thesis statement. Has your thinking changed as you are working with your ideas? Do you need to adjust your thesis statement? Okay, this happens to me all the time. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind as you go. Nobody's going to see your drafts. So maybe as you're working, you come across new information or think up new ideas and you want to change your mind, abruptly or even just a little bit. And so you'll tweak your thesis statement accordingly. So when you think you're done, this is what I do when I'm grading. I usually read a student's paper and I stop after the first paragraph and I ask myself, do I know where this is going? Do I know what the argument is? And these are questions about the thesis statement, okay? So is your opinion clear? Okay? Do I know what you are arguing? And is your opinion supported by reasons or evidence? Okay? Everybody has opinions, but why do you think what you think? And so does your thesis suggest that you have a good grasp of the subject? Okay. So for example, sometimes you'll see this a lot in thesis statements, that you'll see a kind of although but situation where people will say, although there's a lot of thinking on this subject, I'm going to focus on this over here. And what that's doing is it's demonstrating that the author has a good grasp of the subject by saying, you know what, this is a big topic. I can't deal with it all in 4 pages. So what I'm going to deal with is this specific thing over here. And what it demonstrates is, yeah, I've thought a lot about this, and I know that there's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm focusing on this. And that can be a really powerful tool to direct your reader in ways that you want to lead them to understand what you are trying to argue. And so you want to do this in a way, to check your thesis, that asks, is my thesis interesting? Is this something worth arguing about? Okay? Worth having an opinion about? Because some things matter and other things don't. And if it's not interesting to you, chances are it's not going to be interesting to your reader. So there should be urgency or importance or excitement or something, some purpose to your writing. Okay? I realize, I get it. I realize that can sometimes be hard to do in a class situation because you're required to write this for the course. But, hopefully you can find something of interest that's worth writing about. Then you can check your body paragraphs, okay? That you want to check that your body paragraphs have some kind of central point that link back to the thesis. So in your introduction, you've outlined, your opinion and your reasons, and this is partly, the thinking that leads to the 5-paragraph essay, that you got your 3 points in your introduction, and then each of your body paragraphs relate back to those 3 points. That just makes sense. So whether it's 2 points, 6 points, doesn't matter, but your body paragraph should always relate back to your thesis, and it doesn't have to be in this numerical, 3-point, 4-point kind of way. It can be about, think about this video. I said at the beginning, there's 3 things. There's the conceptual, there's the organizational, and the stylistic, right? And so we're working through these things. So you want to link it back to the beginning, okay? And so paragraphs in the body of the essay should follow the order, if there is an order, to your thesis statement. So each body paragraph should have a topic sentence, okay? So you've got your conceptual work, and then you organize it around a topic sentence. Does each paragraph have a topic sentence? And it should, okay? And is that topic sentence clearly related to the thesis? So if you actually break down an essay, your thesis statement should be in the introduction, and your topic sentences in each paragraph in the essay should relate back to the thesis statement. Okay? These are really simple, clear, structural plans for an essay. Okay? So you can think of your topic sentence as a kind of mini thesis or a subpart of that thesis. Okay? So you should use the same thinking around your topic sentence as you do around your thesis statement. And notice that the thesis statement is a statement and not a sentence, because your topic sentences support that statement. And so a topic sentence in your paragraph should not be just a fact or a description. Okay? So students sometimes ask, where should my topic sentence be? It can usually be at the beginning or at the end. of the paragraph. And so a topic sentence should not just be, say, a fact. Okay, and here's why. That if we just took a fact or a description, okay, the tree across the street is turning yellow in fall. Or we could take a fact, 90% of people are obese, okay, or 12% of people are obese. Change the number and you start to see why it's not a good topic sentence. 18% of people are obese. Well, what should we think about that fact? Is there anything we should know about that? Is that a high number? Is that a low number? Okay. Should we have more obese people or fewer obese people? What does 18% actually mean? And so a topic sentence will use these facts and details, the reasons and the evidence to support them, to make an opinion about that. And so you could begin with a fact, which is not your topic sentence, to say, scientists or medical professionals have identified that 18% of people are obese. And you'll say, compared to other countries, this is high or low or whatever. And then you could end your paragraph by saying, this number is too high and here's why. Okay? And you make an opinion out of that statistical information. Okay? Usually you see it the other way around. It'll say, 18% obesity is too high a rate for North America or whatever. And then they'll explain why. So you can do it both ways. Then your conclusion. Sometimes students are really confused about how to write conclusions. I've seen examples where people write the exact same thing in their conclusion as they do in their introduction. That's just a bad strategy, okay? Because it suggests you start and end in exactly the same place. Don't do that, okay? So what should a conclusion do that's different from an introduction? Yes, the conclusion should restate your thesis, perhaps in different terms. You can do it as a kind of progression if you want, that we started here and we've ended up there, okay? And you've walked them through. But usually what you'll find in a lot of academic writing is that conclusions will place the argument in a broader context, okay? So if you remember back to what I was saying about demonstrating that you have a clear grasp of your subject. Okay, notice what I'm doing here. I'm drawing it back to other stuff in the conclusion, right? That a good thesis will indicate that you have a good grasp of your subject, to say, yeah, there's all this discussion, but I'm focusing on this. Now's the time to say, the reason I focused on this is because it relates to all that other stuff that I was not going to talk about. And so it's important to understand this part of it to get a better handle on the other parts. Okay, so you're stating the broader context. Where would we go next? Oh, now that I understand this, what you've said, now I want to know more about that other thing over there. Okay? And so this gets to why it matters that we are broadening our knowledge on a particular subject by being led through your opinion or your interpretation or your thesis about these particular topics.